What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. Sorry, a little late today. I had a little extra work stuff I had to deal with, so I had to push it back 10 minutes, but hopefully everyone's having a fabulous Wednesday today. Today, I figured we'd do more of a AMA style, whatever you guys want to talk about, do some Q&A. So if you guys got any burning saltwater questions, definitely let me know on that one. How is everybody doing today? So if you guys watched my Monday video, did a bunch of mixing station upgrades, and that's been kind of one of my bigger projects lately, is automating a bunch of stuff that I want to do in the past, like getting, actually put a salinity probe in there, which is pretty cool, and have the level sensor so I can actually check in where it's at. So pretty stoked for that so far. Reef with me, what's going on? Hopefully you're doing wonderful today. Yeah, so pretty stoked for all of my mixing station upgrades. I haven't had my auto water change going in quite a while now, so it's been a thing on my to-do list to get that back rolling again and kind of get it back to a happy state. Makes my life easier, and again, auto water changes are awesome, so it's a good way to go. Backwoods Reefer, what's happening? Let me know if the volume and everything is working good. I got a little background music. Hopefully it's not too quiet, too loud. Super last minute today. So yeah. So otherwise, tanks overall, my main tank's been going pretty good. One behind me, not so good. It's kind of, glass is a bit dirty, needs some love, but I just haven't had the chance lately, so got to get things back on that one. What's going on, Michael? Hopefully you're doing wonderful today. I smell maple syrup. Yes, maple syrup. Cheers. What's happening, Pert Wolf? So yeah, if you guys have any specific topics you want to dive into today, or any specific questions, let me know. Today is completely just free for all day. Dun, dun, dun. Quick question. Every coral is doing fabulous. Only one acro, Bill Murray, turned green from being red. Bill Murray is... what's the other name for that? That goes by another name. I actually have that one. Don't do anything drastic in your tank if just one coral's not happy. It's very common for that, and you really don't want to mess with the balance for everything else. If it's turning green from being red, usually green happens if they're in lower light. So if you can move it, I would try moving it up and give it a little higher light in your tank. Mine is kind of mid-tank, which is just above where my gonnies are. So it's probably the lower 1/3 to 2/3 of the tank. I can say more 1/3. So I would try moving to a bit higher light if you can, but otherwise I think it'll be good. I wouldn't worry about too much else. Get the party started. This is not Miami. Heck yes. Hey Devin, do Acropora tend to kill each other when they touch? That really depends. I have certain acros that will touch and fight, and I have certain ones that will just start to grow over top of each other. There will be some form of a slow motion battle, and it very well could just be, one slowly encrusts and grows out the other. Some acros are mean and aggressive, and they will have some coral warfare, and it can definitely kill the other one. Generally, it's not like going to kill the whole colony. It'll just be that piece that is touching that little part or that branch of it, and then it will generally try and grow over that space and take it over once it does it. So many of my tank do touch issue-ish free. They start to kind of merge and grow together, but again, it is like that slow motion battle, so something to consider. Another rabbit hole. So many rabbit holes. Charles, I'm 2T years into the hobby. Good place to be, Charles. Good place to be. Michael, is running UV constant a detriment to a small nano system? So, in general, I say no. You will most definitely be killing off some bacteria in your tank. UV doesn't discriminate. It's going to take out the good, the bad. It doesn't really care. That being said, majority of your bacteria is on your surfaces. It's on your rock, your sand, your glass, everywhere else. So yes, you're knocking some back, but you're not knocking it all back. It's going to help with water clarity. That's a big one. I mean, it will help get rid of some of the masties. It'll prevent bacterial blooms, dinos, other stuff. So there's definitely lots of benefits to it. I don't think it's, going to be a detriment in anything, but yes, you will lose some good bacteria as well. So that's a consideration. Oh, it's been right at the top for 1 year and then bam, green. Yeah, that's a weird one. Usually, okay, if it's been in the same spot and it just turned green, that also could be a trace element thing. If you overdose something that's a trace element, that could also affect it. So that might be something else. Have you dosed anything new? Backwoods Reefer, do you still microbubble in your tanks? I just started doing it. I don't intentionally do it necessarily, but it certainly does happen at times. I mean, if, you know, my elk is too high, it turns off my kelk, which then, that's basically my ATO, and then it'll be sucking bubbles. So, I mean, my tank definitely gets its random doses of microbubbling. So I don't intentionally do it, but it does happen at times. It will help clarify your water, and it does have some other benefits. This is not Miami. Hey Devin, I'm getting some suspect Chaeto soon. Best way to rid of Aptasia. That's a tricky one, man. You could... I don't know if this will work, but my first thought is you could probably dip it in a mixture of peroxide and water. I don't know which ratio yet, though. Chaeto is much harder than other algae, but I also use peroxide dips to kill algae. So that's questionable on that one. But you maybe use a diluted one. I mean, manual inspection is probably the easiest one, but again, that doesn't necessarily get rid of those microscopic ones, right? So, I mean, you pull at any physical ones, just toss that chunk of Chaeto. But no promises, they still might make it in doing that. The other thing you could do is give it a freshwater dip overnight in RODI. That would probably kill the Aptasia, but I haven't tried that for sure. That's probably your safer bet. You're most welcome. What's going on, Dave? Any plans to make out to Wrap, California? I think it's pretty soon, so that one's pretty questionable for me. Would be fun, but I think that might be a little too soon to swing it. ICP showed high nickel. What's the best way to get it out? If it's not causing issue, don't worry about it. Just let it fall naturally. Ideally, look at what you're dosing, and if there's something that you're adding to your tank has nickel in it, then just cut back on that. But, I mean, if you really want to get something out of your tank, obviously just do a big water change and it's going to cut it down. But if you don't... But if it's not causing an issue, then I wouldn't necessarily worry about it too much. Clyde, you use a wave maker to keep slime off your RODI vessel. My RODI vessel. Oh, for like my auto top off? I do not. I have a wave maker in my saltwater mixing bin, but I don't bother with anything in the RODI bin. I haven't really had an issue with slime or anything in there, though. It's been pretty solid. So, not an issue for me, at least. Arthur Reef will probably do an ICP test and see what is different from last time I compare. I am curious to see if there is something that's drastically off, but when I've had it, generally if a coral goes either green or brown, that can be, lighting related, too much or not enough light. But if it's other colors aside from that, I've seen it from overdosing trace elements where just one element kind of takes over. Port Wolf, is there a water polishing filter for 500 plus gallon system that works similar to the old Magnum filters? I have no idea. I've never looked at one for a system that big, but good old poly filter or pillow stuff or filter rollers, or there's a lot of different solutions which you can just scale it up, so it doesn't necessarily matter with the tank size. One thing that you could do is use like a big RODI canister, the big water canisters, and use it as a reactor and put in like a string filter or something with like a larger particle size so it doesn't clog up as quick. That could be a really good way to polish a larger system. What's going on, Jason? Whale shark will fit into a 30 gallon. Might be a little small for that one. Charles, 2.5 years into the hobby with some success. Success is good. Failure can attribute to not finding a style that works for me and try new things. What is your style of dosing nutrient export here? Okay, so style is tricky because partially a lot of the stuff I do is experiment. So I experiment a lot, partially because of YouTube, and if I'm talking about stuff, I need to know about it. So, I've made Chaeto reactors and algae turf scrubbers and normal refugiums, and there's a lot of things that I've done, and I've experimented. I probably tried most things. It depends on what you want to do. Really, they all work. You just gotta find one and stick to it. Your tank generally is happier when you're consistent with things. So yeah, so dosing style. So tank behind me, straight up just the doser. I have the Dosetronic on there, which does my dosing. This is the simpler tank. My water box, I have a lot of coral and a lot of demand in there. So I have a calcium reactor that runs 24/7. I dose calc-water at night, and I also have a Trident that does apex control dosing, which also doses about 100 mils of alk and calcium on top of that. So that one's, kind of overly complicated. There's a lot in there. if I had a smaller tank, I'd probably just use like something simple like all for Reef, one solution, call it a day. This one's fairly simple with just calcium, alk, and mag on the doser. The other one, a lot more complicated. Copper slate corals. Are you dosing kelp 24/7 for stable DKH? Or are you dosing kelp at night? Yeah, so I kind of touched on that one. I personally have just been dosing kelp at night the last couple months, so I do a kind of reverse night cycle. If I'm looking at fusion, when I see my pH dropping is when I start dosing kelp. And I've been doing this more to balance out my pH dips. I'm doing the same thing with the alkalinity dosing supplement, the hydroxides that I'm using. I'm only dosing that at night as well. So I'm doing all my elk boosting stuff at night to kind of lower my dip of pH. CO reefing. Is there a good filter floss to reuse somehow instead of throwing it away every 2 to 4 days? I mean, you can always wash it, right? Like, even filter rollers, if you wanted, it'd be a little bit of work, but you could throw a filter roller in the wash it, and then re-roll it and reuse it. One thing that I have used in the past, you can kind of only use it so many times, but there is that, like, kind of like a polyfill. You can buy it from the fabric stores to use for quilts, and like just buy a big sheet of it, cut little squares. I used to use it in my nano. I mean, you can rinse it, reuse it, but it slowly does clog up, and it's not going to be as good, so it's going to lose a little bit of flow, and the more you wash it, the more you use it. So many ways to go about reefing, and info I consume can be confusing. Yeah, I think at least one issue that I had is I jumped around a lot. I tried a lot of things, and sometimes your tank isn't as happy because you're jumping around so much. And if you just stick to one thing, that stability will make you happier overall. So sometimes it is better just pick something and stick to it. Best way to get Cipro without a prescription. Cipro, coral, Euphilia dips. If you're in the States, it seems really easy. If you're in Canada, it's definitely trickier. I know you can get it from vets, so again, you might need to get a prescription for them, or you might need to go in for something. But I know if you go to a veterinary place, and hopefully their understanding explains for your fish tank, you can get one that way. I do know some people that have went that route with good success. So again, if you have a vet or other furry pets anyways, might be worth asking them. Michael, you're most certainly a gearhead. Yes, I am. Can be intimidating for those like myself who have no experience. Can you recommend an entry point for a simple controller for a nano? So, okay, Michael, first question. Do you want to more for monitoring, or do you actually want to control stuff? So that's question number one. To upgrade to calc milk. I did do calc milk for a while. It does give you a bit of a pH boost over normal calc. It wasn't like massive, but it was more potent for sure. When I did do that, I was basically doing more of the milky slurriness, and I also did have a power head where I was dosing, so it mixed out more and finished dissolving in my sump. So I had definitely tried that rabbit hole. I recall people running DKH at 10 2 years ago. It seems it revert back. I've always been in the 8 to 9 range. I just kind of shoot 8.5, and it goes a little higher, a little lower. Things are all good. I personally like that kind of 8.5 target because then you're not at the extreme ends. I've had my tank up to 12 or 13 or 14, and I've had tanks down to like 6. Any of them can work, but again, you're riding that edge, and if something drastic happens and it tips you over the edge, you're more likely to have issues and stress your corals out too far. Versus if you're in the middle, you have more of a buffer. It's kind of why I like that right in the middle. Just 8.5 is a great target to go for. Port Wolf had a true depth 5.1 micron filter cartridge, 5 micron socks. The only problem with using like the 5:1, especially using it for tank polishing, is it clogs up fast, and then you're gonna have to be changing more often. So I would honestly look at something like a 50 micron string filter, something where it's still gonna catch most of it, but it's not gonna clog up in 2 days, and I think that's the biggest issue. What's going on, Bill? More for monitoring. So on the monitoring front, basically you have the Hydros, or you have the Apex EL entry level, I think it is. So those are kind of the main two options. Depends what you want to do with it. I have a GHL, I have an Apex, I have the Hydros. I tend to like the interface and programming of Apex the best. GHL, for just monitoring, is on the expensive side, and it's a bit of a pain to program. Hydros, definitely lots of people like it. If you do go that route, avoid the Wi-Fi power bars. Those have been a bit flaky for me. Definitely go the wired one if you go that route. What do you think about Amazon 400, 500, 600 gallon per day membrane? Honestly, most RODI units are going to be similar. The housings are all similar. At the end of the day, you know, they might have cheaper filters in there, right? Or they might have a cheaper membrane that dies quicker. Or if you look at the efficiency of the membrane, that's another thing, right? Some might be 95% efficient, or some might be 98% efficient. And the higher... Now, the other thing you got to watch out too is the efficiency is also sometimes correlated with the water temperature and the PSI. So they might be like, you know, faking their stats a bit with higher pressure to make their stats look better. But so that might not be realistically. But some of the stuff for this comes in. So if you have a cheaper, not as efficient membrane, then it's not going to remove as much TDS out of your water, which means you're going to burn through more DI. So sometimes it's worth getting, you know, that higher efficiency membrane, so your DI lasts longer, because DI can be more expensive, right? And then you're going to go through a lot more of that. So that's a big consideration there, Chili Willy Reef. Clyde, do you still dose coral snow? If so, how often? I have not dosed it in a long time. I have used it in the past. So you can make your own with calcium carbonate powder, or you can buy the actual one. Basically, it acts as a flocculant, so you add it to your tank, it's going to look cloudy, all the little particles are going to bind to it, and then it's going to be, you know, whether it settles or gets taken up by your skim or your mechanical filtration. But it will really help clear up that water and just help remove a lot of those little tiny particles in the water. In the past, I have done it, you know, once a week-ish. That's probably roughly what I would do if I was to use it again. Brandon Scott, Apex Junior. Yeah, that's probably your best bet. If with the Neptune stuff, they have the, I think it's the Junior, the normal one, and the Pro. And any of the ones that you use, you can upgrade to all have the same capabilities. But if you know you are going to do all those add-ons eventually, like all the modules to add in the more probes, you're probably better off just buying the more complete one in the first place, because it is a bit cheaper. But either way, you can get there at the end of the day if you want to start with the cheaper monitor only one and add-on put down the road. Have you ever had tin show up in your systems? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen tin on ICP tests. I've never really worried about it, but I will have to double check on that one. Poseidon. I like Tropic Marine Alpha Reef. I've never used it, but I think it's amazing that you can have one dosing solution for everything. Like, how simple is it to have one dosing pump? Like, if I do another nano again, hands down, that's the way I'm going to go. Yeah, Backwoods Reefer. Apex with the Trident has been a game changer for me. It really is a nice system. If you have an Apex, it is nice to have everything all in that one interface. The Trident controlled dosing works really well. I may have one for this tank. But yeah, so it does work well. I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's nice. It's just simple. It integrates nicely. If you're not super techy with things, it's pretty easy to set up and use it. To do Port Wolf, that's what I look for. Pre-filter, reuse, avoid labor. No, exactly. Atkins Nature Aquariums, welcome. Dennis, GHL controller is built like a tank, but UI is unintuitive. 100% agree with you. I have a computer science degree, and I still find it a pain to program. But I think it's physically the best components and the best built. But it's not as slick to use. So, that's the thing. Definitely agree on that one. Rev Devil, my reef tank is sucking up nitrates instantly. I have dosed 500 mils of nitro plus my 25 gallons, still reading 0. Whew. What do I do to increase my nitrates? My coral is suffering. Honestly, the easiest thing is add more fish and feed more. Rather than dosing nitrates directly if you can, you know, add a few more fish to your tank, you know, start feeding more frozen food. I find that works the best in my personal experience. Glad I can catch it live. It's been a while. Welcome. Definitely good to be here. This is just the random Q&A one today, so whatever questions you guys got, we're digging into it. Clyde, do you do trace element dosing, moonshiners? I am a very slacker at it, but yes, I have all the moonshiner trace. I attempt to dose... When I was doing it weekly, my tank actually looked phenomenal, and it was working really, really well. Had a baby, got to slack at it, you know, and now I roughly do a week's worth in a single dose once a week. And my tank doesn't look like quite as like pristine, which this may or may not be related to trace on. This could be very well be something completely different. But I found that it's, the schedule I can keep up with. I do plan on putting them all in a doser at some point. It'll probably be better. So, Brandon Scott, why did the price of salt go up? Very good question. Part of it's probably freight. It's probably everything seems to be freight, and supply chain sucks these days. Ever since good old pandemic times. That's honestly the only reason I got. I don't know. It'd be nice if it's cheaper, but Atkins Neptune Aquariums. I'm running Hydros X3, super easy for me. Yeah, tons of people seem to really like the Hydros. Don't buy the Wi-Fi Power Bars, buy the wired one. That is my tips. I haven't used mine in a little while, but that's the way I would do if I was doing it again. Backwood Reefers, which flatworm stop do you recommend? I was thinking about using it since it's supposed to be SPS crack. Okay. Flatworm stop and coral boosters, the combo. It is absolutely SPS crack. It does work, but being crack, I think it is semi-addictive to the corals. In that, I know one reef from Vancouver, and he grows like super high-end, really nice stuff. And he tells me, he told me, when he ran out or when he stopped dosing it, his corals were pissed. Like, they were angry, they weren't as happy, like, huge difference. So, it is semi-addictive to them in a sense that you gotta wean yourself off of it if you stop using it. I used it for a while, and, I was happy with it, everything looked happy in the tank. Again, I'm also doing traceable and other stuff, so sometimes it is hard to pinpoint it to one thing. But I do feel it does work. It does feels like it helps it base out, works. But again, it is like coral crack in a way. So you're kind of committing yourself to it. So when I did it, I only did a 50% dose. I'm like, okay, you're only getting half of it. You're not as addicted to wean it off. So if you do want to do it, again, I would, recommend maybe do a half dose of it. That stuff's not cheap, right? So it'll last longer if you go that route. Atkins Nature. Yeah, Michael Morefish. I think that's the easiest way to go. Atkins Nature Aquarium. Once the Wi-Fi gets put on 2.4, it's been flawless connectivity with the strips. I don't know if this is related. I have more of like business level, like Ubiquity network in my house, and I have 4 different access points. It does seamless roaming for everything else. All my other smart home stuff works, but the power bars would just like stop responding after a while, and I don't know why. And maybe it's because I don't just have a single access point, like maybe it has an issue with all the multiple ones, I'm not sure. But they were a bit flaky for me, and that's why I kind of quit using it, and that's why I'd only do the wired one if I was to do it again. But aside from that, it worked great until it didn't. Rad, do you know a way to get rid of yellow sponges? Hydrogen peroxide is not working. No, those are tricky. You could just physically remove it. That's always the easiest. Or add a dwarf angelfish, something like a coral beauty or maybe a flame angel, something. Generally, angels will eat sponges, so you could probably get yourself a nice, pretty little predator to keep them at bay for yourself. NSP Reefer, I'm using it. Which one are you using? Atkins, my next add-on, XV8 would be better, just for power mounting. Yeah, no, for sure, I agree. Dustin, how much did kelp help you out? I tried doubling the recommended amount to keep up my tank. It didn't do much for pH. Ran an airline outside for a few hours, not much change. How much did it help your pH? Every tank is different, so it really is hard to say. Like this tank, I could probably do most of my dosing with just kelp. My other tank, not a chance. I still gotta do tons just because there's so much coral growth in there. So it really depends on your system. And again, it also depends on how much CO2 in the air that's fighting. If you live somewhere really hot and your AC's running, all your windows are closed up really tight, your pH is going to be much lower. If your windows are open, there's fresh air coming through your house, your pH is going to be higher because there's less atmosphere CO2. So it's always fighting it. Same thing, you got a bunch of people in your house, so you got dogs running around, they're breathing, they're putting out CO2, it's going to lower your pH. So it's hard to say directly with how much kelp affects it because there's so many variables on that one. Mistaken about mentioning marine snow killing vermilion snail somehow. Okay. Port Wolf. I did a live stream with Mike Paletta probably like 3 or 4 years ago, and that was something that he brought up in it. about using marine snow to kind of choke out vermitid snails. He's the only person I've heard it from, so I mean I can't 100% confirm it, but that's where I originally heard that from. Poseidon. I found high nutrients with high nutrient input with high nutrient output is best for coral growth. No, for sure. I mean, heavy food in, lots of food for the corals, but keeping your nutrients low is a great way to go. How would you set up a saturated calc dose on a hydros using pH as my input? Thinking about doing a generic output, like some from other controller uses. What did I do with that one? I'm pretty sure I just had mine dosing 24/7. If you're trying to maximize calc, as long as your elk is staying within a happy range, however much you're evaporating, say you evaporate a gallon a day, dose a calc a day. A gallon of calc a day. Like that's going to be, maximizing the pH benefit that you can get from it. Alex King, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Appreciate it. Hey Dev, old pick, but met you at Reef of Palooza Orlando. I owe you an Apex video request list. Need guidance on clear direction. All right, Alex. Thank you for the super chat, and I'm nice to meet you, buddy. I'm pretty sure I actually remember you, but was it last year or before that? I owe you Apex video request. I need your guidance and direction. Yeah, let me know whatever you want to know specifically on it, and I'll do it. I also kind of have Paul from Neptune coming on, once a month-ish right now. So we're digging random stuff, and, definitely perfect one if there's anything specific that we want to dive into. I somehow ended up setting up multiple Apexes lately, so it's funny, if you look at my Fusion, I have like 20 different Apexes on there. Tons of them. Okay, Crypto Roar. My clownfish have been together for 6 months. Today, female seems like he's trying to kill the male. Yeah, it's probably a dominance thing. Awesome, Alex. I thought so. Awesome, buddy. But yeah, whatever you want to know specifically, let me know. What could be happening with crypto with yours, if they're two males and they're both smaller, one of them could be turning into a female now. And that will happen. And they will definitely be a little bit of a dominance thing for a while, and they'll kind of get in their groove, and then they tend to tame down and pair up again. So I'm guessing one of them probably turned to a female, and they're probably doing that bit of a dominance dance right now. For hydros, just run the calcstir program with input pH you want to keep. There you go. You just got to make sure you're not overdosing too much. That's the thing, right? Because with calc, if you have a low demand tank, probably pretty easy. But if you have a high demand tank and you're going to be dosing too much, you might be raising your water level in your return pump more than you're evaporating. And that's the only thing you got to watch out for with that method. Port Wolf, maybe where I heard it, my memory was foggy. Do you have some vermitid snails and marine snow? I don't have any actually, I might have marine snow. I don't think so. If I do, it's a very, very old bottle. I'll hunt for some vermitid snails for you later. Dun, dun, dun. I don't know if I'll be making any more shows this year. I don't know if I'm going to make California. I've been to Orlando many times, but I haven't been to California, so I definitely got to add that one to the list. Maybe next year I'll do it if I don't do this year. Dun, dun, dun. What else we got for questions? Yeah, Poseidon found high nutrient input is the best for coral growth with high nutrient output. Yeah, so that works as long as you have really good filtration to keep up with it. You just got to make sure you're not just constantly boosting up your nitrates and phosphates to too high of a level. Now, I find personally having nitrates and phosphates, some people like to run them super low. I find something kind of in the middle, you get better coral coloration. So you get kind of deeper, richer colors, like deeper blues and greens, which I personally think looks a bit better. I know some like more the lighted look, but I always kind of target that kind of 0.03 to 0.09 for phosphates. The nitrates kind of 5 to 20 range, somewhere in there. Anywhere in that range, I'm generally pretty happy. Reef had a guy from Reef Sites who has a proponent of coral slash marine snow. Ah, yes. I'll have to watch that one later. What's in the glass? This is bamboo rum. Very tasty. I've had my Trident for a year now. What signs should I be looking at to indicate when it's time to send it in for service? Should I service it myself? What do you recommend? I have not serviced mine yet. Personally, if you're semi-handy, you don't mind taking stuff apart, I would just service it yourself. But again, you could always send it in if that's the route you want to go. I believe they said around a year and a half, but I'm not 100%. I will double check with Paul when I have him on in a week or two, but I believe it was somewhere around a year and a half. Again, it probably depends on how frequently you're testing. If you're just doing the minimum testing, you're probably get away a bit longer. The other thing I'd look at too is if your test results, when you calibrate the fresh batch, if your prior test results were very similar, you're probably good. But if you're starting to get vastly different results, then it's probably time to get it serviced and do kind of the refresh kit on it. That's kind of my thoughts on it. What's your take on AI blades? I actually really like the AI blades. I have 2 on this one. They're kind of fairly thin, so you don't fully see it, but I do have... Oh, they're off right now for my stream. So I have the 2 glows on the tank beside me. I use them more for like extra color pop fill lights. If I was doing it as my main light on the tank, I would go with the grow. If I'm doing it as an accessory light, I'd do the glow. Or if I was doing just blades, I'd alternate them from like a grow and a glow, and kind of alternate them. The cool thing is, one, they're super thin. You could have them really low to the glass. So if you have a tank where you don't want any light spill, you can have it basically on top of the glass, and you're not going to have any spill outside the tank, which I like. And I also think it's really cool that there's no fans. It's completely passive, so they're silent. So if it's like in your office or somewhere where you're a bedroom, you don't have to worry about any fan noise or any type of stuff like that, right? It's dead silent. So I do like them, and I think they're pretty cool for those couple of reasons. I also do have, not on a fish tank per se, but I have a vivarium as well with dirt frogs, and I put the freshwater one on it just because I wanted something controllable that wasn't on and off, so I'm going to have it, sunrise, sunset, and I'm using the freshwater one. So it's kind of cool. Your audio is doubling with an echo effect. That is no fun. Hopefully it's not too bad. But now I'm curious. Turn that down a bit. What's your go-to protocol when you see RTN, STN? I freeze, I don't know what to do. Most of the coral is wasted away. So if you have for RTN, STN, if it's only minor, a lot of the times I will actually not do anything. Because I've had certain ones, like recently I had a bit of STN on my red dragon, and I didn't do anything. It just stopped on its own, and it stopped expanding. Like it just kind of cut off, and everything was good. If it was RTN, where it's actively attacking stuff and going, generally I'll frag a fresh chunk of the coral about a 1/4 inch above where it is, and then I'll put that fresh plug somewhere else, and things tend to be okay after that. So I've definitely went that route to like save pieces if it's STNing fast. But if it's only a small one, a lot of the times I've had it just stop. In the past I've also tried putting super glue over top of it, and that's kind of seemed to work just where it was receding. So it depends a little bit on that one. But if you are seeing it, first question, is there something up with your tank that's causing it? Is there something that's stressing it? Did your pH dive? Did you have a big algae swing? And the echo's worse now. Well, that's no fun. Speakers. Let me turn down that a bit. Alright, hopefully that's okay. Is it still bad? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, is that better? Hopefully. I'm not actually listening to myself today, so I don't follow them. Let me know if it still sounds weird. I think my headphones fell on the little pad, so it might have triggered some effect or something. Okay, let me know if it's fixed. Hopefully it's good. A freshwater love. Yeah, I haven't had a freshwater tank in probably 7, 8 years now, so I am wondering, maybe one day I'll try one again. Better? Nope. Maybe not better. Do. It's still echoing weird. Oh. There we go. Did that fix it? It was pulling the audio from the camera as well as the mic. I'm guessing it's fixed now. Listenable, but still there. Okay, hopefully that works. It's still there a little bit. There might be a slight delay. But I'm 90% sure is because I had multiple microphones it was picking up. And I muted the camera, so hopefully we're good. Better. Okay, yeah, sorry about that. I was picking up multiple mics. Yes, fixed. Perfect. All right, thank you. I did a secondary camera today instead of the normal one, so it messed with my setup. So yeah, freshwater tanks. Random question. I am curious how many people in the chat keep freshwater and saltwater. I know most of you are saltwater, but I know there is some fresh out there. It's been at least 8 years since I've had a freshwater tank, and every once in a while I debate if I should do just like a little tiny planted shrimp tank again, but I don't know. The coral is the addicting part for me, but I do appreciate a nice planted tank. Ty, I just moved to an E170 to a 425 XL. All the coral fish livestock about 3 weeks ago. Mostly SPS and hammer coral. Cloudy water today. Added carbon. What would your move be? If it's just particulates, I mean, honestly, I'd probably just throw in a bit of filter floss or something like that in the tank and just let that polish the water and get rid of it for you. Otherwise, it's kind of waited out. But if it's already been 3 weeks, it's either A, bacteria bloom, or B, it's just stuff in the water. So, you know, your filter floss or that polyfill, something like that, will polish it out for you, usually within a day or two. But you will have to change it frequently to finish it off. So much better. Awesome. Sorry about that, guys. Thanks for the heads up. Nope, never really like freshwater. 180 planted in a 50-gallon reef. Nice. Atkins Nature, 12 freshwater tanks and 2 saltwater. That's a pretty good solid spread of tanks. Those shrimp tanks are cool. 3 past tenths need the room. Only done saltwater. Freshwater just looks bland to me. I would only do a planted freshwater tank. Like, it would have to be like, you know, grassy fields and like full plants, and which is kind of good. But the regular ones wouldn't suck me in at all. Like, freshwater is the only one I could do. Brackish could be kind of cool. I'll have to do an update on it, but I have a dart frog tank on this side, which I think is super cool. And I've dabbled with the idea of trying to figure out if there's a way, because you know those are paludarium style tanks where they have all the plants and stuff with like a little mini freshwater tank below it. I've been like dabbling in my mind if there's a way to do like a saltwater version, so you got like coral and salt underneath, but like some plants and stuff above it. I think that'd be kind of cool. So I haven't quite figured out how to work that yet, but you could do something, you know, fun with like your misters for your plants, or else your auto top off, and like there's probably some cool ways to work it. I've dabbled with that for the past year, so I don't know. Maybe one day I'll come up with some crazy project. But yeah, when I was in freshwater, I was obsessed with all the little like crystal shrimp for a while. All those little fancy shrimp. So I had a bunch of like mini nanos with all the different little fancy shrimp. They're kind of fun. Ty Hayes, I'm thinking bacteria. Should I be concerned? The corals don't look the best right now. Honestly, the corals are going to take some time to adapt. You just moved them. It's probably, you know, a bit of a swing of parameters. And it might be, you know, a few weeks or a month or two before they kind of resettle in and are happy again. So it is a big shocker to them, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But yeah, bacteria bloom is most likely if it's been 3 weeks, because that's quite a while for that to be there. If you have a UV, you could throw it on the tank, and that'll probably clear it up pretty quick. That's kind of like the quick fix if you have that as an option. One-armed reefer was freshwater from 6 to 35 years. Made the mistake of setting up a small tank for clowns a month, converted my 3 freshwater to marine. Yeah, that's kind of what I did, actually. I had actually really nice planted tanks, and I started one saltwater and then another one, and then they all turned saltwater. And then my one last freshwater one was neglected. But every once in a while I debate it again, so we'll see. Maybe one day. Place an order from Tannins covering for the new build. Half of me thought it'd be cool to have the same tank, like side by side, and have like one planted and one coral, but like matching tanks, you know, either side of the desk, or I don't know. Maybe one day I'll do something different. Diving and NG biotopes. Place another order for Tannins. For a new build. Nice. Anything that eats sponges that's also reef safe. Dwarf angelfish are mainly reef safe, not 100%. There's always a bit of a flight risk. I have a coral beauty now in my tank. He's great. Doesn't really touch any of my corals. I've had a flame angel in the past, and he definitely nipped at stuff. So it is a bit of Russian roulette on if it's going to be completely coral safe. In general, I find that dwarf angels are good, but there's always that chance they might be nipping at, some of the fleshy stuff. Jay's Aquarium. I know you've probably answered this a million times, but switching to your AB Plus schedule and just want to see what schedule intensity you'd recommend for mainly LPS and softies. What type of lights, Jay's Aquatic? Are they 15s or 30s? How many? And roughly how big is your tank? Rad, my rocks are turning black. Covering coralline, any ideas? If it's coralline algae, don't worry about it. I don't think I've seen black coralline. Usually it's like a pink or a purple, or maybe it's just a super dark purple. But it could just be some funky strain that's in your tank, and that's one that's taken over. Thanks, appreciate the input. You're most welcome. Nick, I have a lot of LPS, so I'm nervous about one. Nervous about what, Nick? A dwarf angel. Yeah, that's fair. Thank you. Always great advice. You are most welcome. Cheers. Happy to help. Yeah, I've never actually seen black coralline algae. However, it could be related to the color of your lighting and the color that it looks like to you. Like in a whiter light, it might look different. But if you're really heavy blues, that purple very well could look black. I would love to see more salty and fresh stuff in the mainstream. Nice to mix technology and techniques. Yeah, it's true. The funny thing is, when I was into fresh, like now we have dosing pumps. They're a common thing. I don't even think there was like hobby dosing pumps when I was, because I remember I bought little pumps off like AliExpress, and I used Arduino, and I built my own doser because it wasn't even really a thing back then, because I was tired of dosing the fertilizers daily. So it made me laugh. I was already like hacking stuff back then. Now it's like commonplace in saltwater to do all the hacking and slashing, but in freshwater it seemed like a pretty crazy thing at the time. Freshwater filters all suck on AC power pumps. Yeah, I've converted mostly to DC on everything just because it's quieter, it's more power efficient. It's kind of win-win on that one. Chris, are you running lunar mode on the new MXM modules on your light? I believe I am. I do have a moonlight mode on mine. Let me double check that for you. But I'm 99% sure I do have it set up. Yep. Radio and lunar. Yep, no, I have it 10%. Yeah, up to... yeah, it's around 10:30, 11 at night. It's about 30%. It goes 20%, then 10%. Yeah, so, yes, I am. Sorry, 2XR15 G6 on a 350 4-foot by 2-foot. I would blind guess. I'm thinking probably around 45-50% is my blind guess without knowing the power and everything else. That's kind of instinctively where I would put it based on experience. Hen Roth, wondering what's a great pH meter. Are you wanting a standalone meter you can just plunk in the tank and check it, or are you wanting a controller that can constantly monitor it? I know Milwaukee has some, I know Hannah has some, or you can go get a full-blown aquarium controller, like the Hydros or an Apex that has one, and you get 24/7 monitoring. So depends what you want on that one. They also do make standalone ones for around $100 or $120 that are more meant for calcium reactors. And again, that's something you could leave in the tank if you didn't want a controller. That's kind of just a way to monitor it constantly. Michael, never did freshwater, straight to nanos. Solid choice. Still have original clowns that are 16-year-olds old, have been with me through so much. How long can they live in captivity? About a year or two ago, I had Robert King on, who is like a hardcore clownfish guy. And I believe his clownfish was somewhere between 25 and 30 years old. So they can definitely live a long time. And that's something that, not everyone considers when they get some of these fish, right? They can live a decade. Like, they can definitely be up there. So, 25 years, 30 years for clownfish is pretty crazy. But it's kind of cool. Like, I still have my original one from probably 8-9 years ago now. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, and even at I remember sometimes I go to public aquariums. Like some of the clownfish are huge. Like mine still looks small in comparison. You definitely know they're pushing, 20 to 30. I can never abandon them. I know, right? They're like your babies. You've had them for so long. Well, that's kind of the cool thing with a lot of these saltwater fish. So yeah, big consideration. Make sure you pick fish that you love because they'll likely be with you for a long, long time. Do you are most welcome. All right, guys. Let me know what else you guys got for questions. Anything you want. Sweet. Dun-dun-dun. So I've been toying with the idea of setting up a nano again, more for rock flowers. I do kind of miss having a dedicated tank, so I'm debating a rock flower tank. And then, like, the common sense to me is like, oh, just load this up with rock flowers, but that'd take a lot of rock flowers. So we'll see. I don't know. It might happen at some point. The only problem with this big tank in my office is there's a lot of humidity adds to the room for such a large water volume and not a massive room. It's either that or maybe I'll get some kind of like lid inserts made on the top to cut it back a bit, but we'll see. Will I set up a freshwater tank in the future? I don't know, maybe. If I move my office to another room, which I've contemplated, I may set up a nano one. But we will see. Michael, I have a vampire tang now, 8 years now, and love how it changes colors. It's pretty cool. Great fish. It is cool. I've never had a vampire tang, but I do have my Red Sea Sylphin tang, and that one will completely change. It goes from very dark, and it can look almost white at tanks. Usually, like in the morning, it'll be like really white and super light, and, with like a minute of me by the tank, it's super dark again, and it's really cool to see that kind of difference. If you went Neo, what would you choose? Neo means nano. How often do you need to calibrate your Reef factory cage keeper? I believe it bugs me every 2 months or so. Let's see if it tells me in here. I'm fairly bad at ignoring it for a few weeks and eventually calibrating it, but I feel like that one's every 8 weeks. A lot of them seem to be around that kind of 8-week schedule, I find. If I did a nano, what would I choose? I don't know for sure. I'll get back to you on that one. I randomly look just to see if I do, but I don't know if I want a third tank. So it's a lot more effort when you get too many tanks. I've been the crazy person with many, many tanks. Right now I have two. Two's like a happy number. But, as the kid gets older and it's starting to have a little bit more of a life again, a little more time. So we'll see. Who knows? Installed. I don't think I would do this one, but just a random thought. There is that one innovative marine tank that's half. It's like 2 tanks with a split in 1 tank, but split into 2, which is kind of cool. It'd be kind of funky to do some weird contrasty thing with something like that, but I'd probably do a bigger version if I was to do it. I used to be digging the water box frag tanks too, like the shallow, wide, low ones, but I don't think they have the smaller ones anymore. There's bigger ones, but. So it really depends what I do. If I was to do rock flowers, I'd probably want something really shallow and do like a cool lagoon style one. The vamp is also known as Lieutenant Tang. I have to Google that right now because now I'm curious. Oh, those guys. Okay. It kind of looks like... Is that an orange shoulder or super... It looks like an orange shoulder tang. Maybe it's the same thing. Yeah, those guys are kind of cool too. Waterbox 20 with stand is a great one. I really enjoy it as a nano. I do love my big waterbox tank. It's like a very nice tank, so I've been very happy with it. It's very premium and it's been nice. When are you going to build a studio or coral farm? One day. YouTube doesn't pay enough to afford that, but it would be cool one day if I actually have the space to make studio style and lots of experiment tanks and different biotopes, which would be awesome. But again, I don't know if I have the space or time. I've debated closing in the carport and turn into a garage and turn that to a big office, but again, it's a bunch of money that I don't have right now, so maybe one day. What's a good pH probe for a calc reactor / apex control? Anyone, honestly, will probably work. I would stick with a double junction because they'll hold the calibration the longest. I think I've used Milwaukee in the past. I've used Atlas Scientific. I've used BRS ones, and I've used the Neptune Pro, whatever they call their double junction ones. All have worked well. honestly, any of those brands would be solid and you'll be good to go with them. All right, guys, I think I am going to call it pretty quick since it's been about an hour. Still got a few bit of running around I got to do today. So if you have any last burning questions, let me know, and we will see if we can hit them up before we wrap things up. But as always, hopefully you guys enjoyed it, learned something, got those questions answered. So yeah, 2-minute warning, last minute ones, let me know. Yeah, so pH probe, you're pretty flexible on those ones. You're most welcome, Michael. Thanks for hanging out today, guys, as always. Sorry, a little last minute crazy today, but should get March from Fragbox to send you a Casa. I was looking at their tanks last night, actually. They look nice. On that note, I'm pretty sure March is next week's guest, actually, so I will chat some nanos with him. I will definitely add that to the list, and we'll chat about his new tanks, because I'm curious. But yeah, the Reef Casa tanks look solid. It's funny, though, because I was literally looking at them a few days ago. So next week. Pretty sure he's my guest for next week, so that should be a good one. 9th? Yeah, he is. Sweet. Have a good one. Question was in the message. Perfect. Awesome, guys. I'm going to call her. Have a great night. Yeah, next week, March from Fragbox should be a great guest. He was an awesome one last time. Tons of good rabbit holes. Probably dig into the nanos in his tanks and whatever rabbit holes it